Hello folks, I'm back again, and today we're going to do an All Aquarium update, or an all enclosure update, depending on how you look at it. I've got a whole bunch of tanks, got a whole bunch of, got a couple of terrariums too, and we're going to go one by one through these and kind of get you caught up on where they're at this year. So typically I would do about 2 of these a year. I'm thinking about maybe this is probably my last of those. I'm wanting to redo my channel a little bit. I want to change some of the format, quit doing basically the same videos I've been doing for 13 years. I'm going to try to change things up a little bit. And that might include not doing these particular updates and maybe just individual updates on this stuff. Feel free to let me know how you feel about that down below. I get very few comments, but I try to answer and acknowledge each one that I get. So usually when I do this as sort of a voiceover, I think what I'm going to do is something different. I'm going to pick the camera up and I'm actually going to walk around and talk about these things. I've got a whole bunch of B-roll that I actually shot weeks ago, like before any of the other videos that you've seen. These past couple of weeks, I shot this, my All Aquarium update, or shot all the B-roll that I typically would use for that. If you see fish in weird places, because I know I just did this video where I moved fish around, if you see them back in their original spots, that's what happened. This was shot at least a week before I moved any fish around or even shot that video at all. Just so you know. What I've been doing is every 6 months I go around and I get everything cleaned up, get it kind of presentable, kind of like cleaning the house for some company that come over. Or special guests or something. So you're my special guest, and we're gonna take a look at all these aquariums. You guys ready? Let's go. This is my cat. He's mostly harmless. Kind of a scamp. Likes to make a lot of noise. Don't ya? Deep. I suppose we could start with the 210 since I'm standing right here. So this is my biggest tank. I did rescape it recently. In fact, I went through and I did all this at the beginning of the year, and just a few months ago, I also tackled the sump, which is doing really well also. I actually just discovered that I have some baby fish in here that I'm very excited about, and we'll see what those are. I think that those will be more of those little tetras that I pulled out of here earlier. The rescape has been amazing. I'm so glad I did it. Not every plant came back just as I had hoped, but more of them are doing better. I've definitely got some better growth down in the bottom part here. Crypts are not all that picky, but they do sometimes suffer when they don't get just what they need, and these seem to be doing pretty good. Of course, I've got some big Anubis. A lot of them get knocked free because the Bisher that'll occasionally make an appearance, he will knock those things loose. I've got a whole lot of fish in here. I've been experimenting with different fish that could possibly live with the Bisher. I think probably my best choice that I've made so far have been these giant Danios, which actually ended up being really pretty after they colored up. But all the fish in here seem to be doing really well, even some new ones that I've just added, and everybody's getting along. I do feed them really well. I actually have one of these little pill containers. I have sort of a diverse selection of food. I set it up once a week. I kind of go through and I fill all these up. So it's not such a pain to kind of give them a couple of different kinds of food all in one go. It's been a fun and sometimes challenging tank just because of the size, but I've had a really good time with it. I'm so happy I put it together. So just recently I started using some of this Easy Green. Cory from Aquarium Co-op sent me this. Of course they sell it there in their shop, so I got this for free. So I decided to start using this in here and see how it does. It's a little early to make a judgment call just yet, but especially with all this growth, I mean, if you can see behind here, this pothos, all of this pothos is coming from like 1 or 2 vines inside of here. There's actually, there's some Anubis and stuff in here too. There's a couple of different plants coming out of the back of this thing. But I feel like they absorb a lot of nutrients that maybe could help this thing out. So I started adding a little bit of that in there too. And if we follow the pothos around, we come down over here, and here we see the Orb. This Orb Air is a couple of years old now. I don't do much with it other than add water. I have had to trim the plants in it, especially these dragon tongue, or I think it's what it's called, down in the back. Of course, the big claim to fame is the big fogging feature for this, which always looks cool. I don't never see it fog on its own, except in the winter time when the heat comes on and it gets really, really dry. And I guess that makes sense because it needs a lot more humidity. But sometimes I'll see this thing and it'll just run and run and run and run. I've taken a cue lately to know that I need to add a lot more water when that happens. Just to the basin and stuff, because it does have a little reservoir underneath to kind of keep it from filling up. I've just got some isopods in here. I see them very occasionally. I throw fish food in there now and then to kind of help give them a little something extra to eat, besides dead leaves and wood and stuff like that that's also in there. Boy, if you guys like a little nature in your home and you want a real hands-off approach, something that you can kind of set it up and just add water to it once in a while and enjoy it all the time, this is it. The Orb Air, they're a little pricey to start with, but boy, is it a great little container. So as we move over here, we get to the 42-gallon cube. I got it from Seven Ports. It's a Seven Ports product. It's a really nice glass, kind of museum quality glass. I did set this up right as my father passed away, so there's a lot of sentimental value in this tank. Right now it's got a bunch of crazy green barbs that like to chase each other around, and some of my Skifa multiplectatas and some endlers and stuff like that. It's got a really cool yellow pleco and some Coryne cats down here low. This tank also has a couple of pothos. As you can see, the pothos just continues to go over to here and also into the floor. I had a CO2 tank hooked up to this in the beginning, but I haven't used it in a long time. It doesn't really need it. It's very thick in there. Cutting off the CO2 doesn't really seem to have affected it very much. It's one of the few that I kind of get some buse growth on. Some of the leaves are looking a little yellow, so I'm wondering if I need to add some nutrients in here. So I might squirt some of that Coryne's special juice in here. I've talked a lot about the fish and the stuff in here in my last couple of videos, so I guess we'll move on. But boy, this is a really amazing tank. I'm so thankful that it came out as nice as it did. So as we come over here, you'll see the Megaflex. The Megaflex is this one's really hard to photograph. Like, I promise you, in person, it comes out so much nicer than I can ever photograph it. And I think it's because it's got such a dark region down below. Like, if I add some supplemental light, you can kind of see the root structure and stuff. But of course, then you get a glare from this light. But it's been a real amazing tank. It was kind of shaky at first. It wasn't the ideal scenario that first year. Like, I think it did okay after about 6 months. It started having problems. And it seemed like I was having problems all the time. Then eventually it evened out, and now it's been great. It's been a really great tank. I'm real careful with the stocking of this one. I try to keep the stocking such to where the plants get a lot to eat. The fish aren't overcrowded. It ends up kind of being a retirement home for a lot of different fish that don't have schools anymore, like this poor little rummy nose down here. At one point, I also had a bunch of ember tetras and stuff, and it looks like I'm down to maybe 4 or 5 of them. So it's had a little bit of a rotating cast inside of this. It is a really fun one to sit and watch. I love all the interesting fish that I've kept in here over the past couple of years. It's a really fun way to sit and watch them. I've got a chair right across from here, and I actually sit and watch this tank quite often. It's very relaxing. All this Anubis is stuff that I've grown. This is all stuff from my other tanks. In fact, this whole tank, every plant in this tank came from other tanks that I had set up at some point. And it all just kind of ended up in here. This Anubias must just be the perfect distance from this light up here, and it just grows like crazy. In fact, I'm always trimming this off and giving it to friends and taking it to the fish club and stuff like that. So it's been a very productive tank. So as we go over here, you'll see that little waterfall that I had set up over here is gone. I dismantled that. I might bring it back sometime, but not right now. I just didn't feel like cleaning it up and doing all the stuff I really needed to do. This tank we've been talking about a little bit because of the fish that are in it. I've got my Skas in there. I've also got a frog that's kind of cool and really amazing. Really love this little frog. I'm probably going to get him his own tank. He seems like he's too slow to be any real danger to anything in here, even shrimp and stuff like that. And the other fish chase him around and stuff, so it's not like he's been a big problem in here. Right now I've got one male and one female, hopefully, of these goodids, and I'm hoping that they breed in here. Just left them all alone, so there's no distractions, nothing to keep them from doing what they need to do. So it's just those two guys. There's also a Placo in here that won't come out, of course, while I'm standing here. This is another one that was kind of rough at first, and then I redid it, and it just ended up being so much better. I meant to mention, too, this one does have the under gravel filter set up, as well as this one back here, the 42 gallon. It also has the under gravel filter. In fact, the 210 also has an under gravel filter. That's something I've been experimenting with lately. And kind of adding those in doesn't seem to have affected the plant growth or anything like that. I'm still able to grow plants just fine. All of them, of course, just like any other tank, required a little bit of time to really settle in and get to being the way I wanted them to be. But by keeping up with it, keeping up with the water changes too, keeping the stocking kind of low, I've been able to kind of keep these up, keep them in nice, good shape. I don't have too much trouble with algae on the glass or anything like that. I think the Placo takes care of most of that. But this one's been a real pleasure to own. I've even got some cherry shrimp in here. Thankfully, those Skas seem to ignore cherry shrimp and the like too, so that's been nice. This is a great tank. I would say, like, this would be a good office tank if you wanted a good kind of not huge tank but not small tank to take in and put at work or something like that. It might be a little bit big on a cubicle desk, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a really nice sized tank. I love it. The Fluval Flora. So as we make our way into the kitchen, you're going to see one of my older tanks, and this is the Spec 16. It actually doesn't have a great deal of inhabitants right now. I've moved a lot of the fish out. I've got one Skifa in here that was just fighting with everyone else that was in there, and a whole bunch of shrimp, a bunch of cherry red shrimp. So this tank might be going away next year. I haven't decided yet. It's one of those with the filter in the back. The trouble is with these filters in the back, I've noticed that it seems to be a place where a lot of shrimp seem to congregate. I'll pull a number of fish out of here too. It's kind of annoying. But I've got some ideas for this. I might take this top part off, make a little acrylic kind of paludarium and really transform this. So this will be a good opportunity to really keep using this, but in a different way. I've got plenty of room up, so I could even mount a light like way up high over here, and maybe make a paludarium out of that. That lid comes right off, easy peasy. So maybe that could be cool. Yep, this tank's been up for a long time, and it's definitely time for a change. And speaking of recent changes, this terrarium that I redid, I took my vision cage basically, and I've utilized this other one. It seems to be doing really good. I've had a real good time with it. You're going to notice there's like some little, these are those little biodegradable food containers. I actually put them under these little bits of, it's like some nutshell of some sort. This thing's been running with this mister. I have a RO water machine that I refill this mister with. And it's been running It's been running since I started a terrarium over here, since the very first one that I did a couple of years ago. So it's doing great, despite getting some kind of shaky reviews on Amazon. Got a crested gecko. He's kind of hanging out in the back. He goes in that back corner and hangs out most of the time. He does occasionally make an appearance and show himself running around, but it's pretty rare. In fact, I keep a lot of the bugs. The reason I've got that down here is when he's done with his food, I take it out and I put it upside down over here. Then the isopods and well, apparently some leftover mealworms have turned it into full beetles, and now they run around in there, and the cycle's gone all the way around, and I've got mealworms again. So I kind of have an ongoing food source down in here, and it very obviously comes down and takes a bite of them once in a while. I don't see him eating much. I give him fresh food every other day in the form of that little the stuff that you mix up, but I don't see him eating on that very much. So I'm pretty sure he's down here just kind of exclusively eating bugs that I also grow with the food that he doesn't eat. If you look real close in the middle, it's probably hard to tell, but this plant right in the middle, this is the tree that was inside of that little mini waterfall thing that I set up. I actually took that out and just planted it right in the middle of there. I did that after I made this video, so that's kind of a fairly recent addition, but it seems to be growing in here. I really like this enclosure a lot. It's gotten a little bit cold here, so I've included a little bit of supplemental heat, but I'm keeping the heat kind of low because he doesn't need it to be very hot. I'm using this Kessel light because I had it, and because I can tie it into these, so it ties in with all the lights here. All these lights work together on a little timer that's over on the corner over there, and they turn on and off on their own, and they do a little bit of a ramp up, ramp down. It's all about 25%. But it ramps up and ramps down and joins in with the other tanks, which is kind of neat. All right, now we're up here in my game room. This is where I film all my board game videos, which is something else I like to do. And also where I work from home when I'm working from home. Right next to me here, we have the 10-gallon. This was a Scaping with Scraps challenge that Rachel O'Leary did in during the pandemic, so 2020. She did some challenge, and I accepted. This initially had a waterfall and some cool features that kind of broke after a few months. Later still, I started watching Father Fish and decided to fill it up with sand. So I added I didn't go hog wild, but I think I added about 2 inches of sand to the bottom of this. It had just aqua soil on it initially. It's got the mystery fish that I pulled out of the sump recently. I believe those are gold tetras. I don't remember who made the comment, but after looking around at all the different fish and really observing these, I'm pretty sure that they're gold tetras, probably from some floating plant that I got at a fish swap. Of course, right here we have my favorite coolie loach. This is like the only banded coolie loach I've ever bought that lived. And we've also got a Siphodon goby, which is a really neat little fish, kind of like a goby and an otto mixed together. And I've got another goby that lives deep in the sand here that is very difficult to photograph, but every now and then I'll kind of catch him out, and I get a little shot of him. All right, so as we go over here, we see the tiny island tank, and boy, the light is super dim in here, but there are Anubias growing. It actually looks kind of pretty. It's one of those things that just doesn't photograph as well as I would like. Then up here, of course, we've got the island. We've got some Anubias in bloom here, and these are cardinal plants. Boy, if you ever set up a paludarium and you want a really tough plant that grows really strongly in this type of environment, I definitely recommend the cardinals. I'd like to move away from these, but they do such a great job that I'm kind of scared to pull it out. I don't want to mess up the filter that I've established in here with that, but I might pull it out and just let the Anubias kind of run wild. But I'm kind of curious to see how tall these get. Right now in here, I've got a whole bunch of cull shrimp. I found a whole bunch of these different kinds of shrimp. They're all different colors. There's green and striped, and and blue and everything else. They're all in this tank that was marked cull. And, and I bought like a bag full of them for $20, and I threw them in here. And I've seen little babies and stuff. There's no telling. They'll probably all turn brown after a period of time anyway. But I've just kind of got them in here, and I've been enjoying watching them move around and stuff. I've got a couple of mono shrimp in here too. I've recently added a scarlet batis because I started seeing planaria everywhere, and I was hoping that perhaps that batis could help with that. It's funny, it's not a very shy fish, but it's so small it's hard to photograph. It'll probably come around here if I hang out long enough. Yep, there he goes. This tank's been a lot of fun. It's kind of the reimagining of its neighbor over here. So let's take a look at that. This is my steampunk tank. This is probably one of my most well-known tanks. It does really, really well. I'd say aside from the Megaflex and stuff, this is the one that people think about. I set this up for like a sort of an aquascaping contest at the Big Fish Deal years ago, and it's still going. This tank has seen a lot in the past couple of years. So in the top of it here, we have a bunch of Buse plants, and also getting more of those cardinal plants. I have to trim those back all the time. They will grow all the way to the top of this little glass enclosure. The Buse does really, really good right there on that margin, right there coming out of the water. I would really love to replace all of these cardinals with just more Buse, but I'm waiting for this to kind of grow up, so I just keep trimming this back when it gets a little bit too intrusive, and growing that Buse out of there. So inside of this tank, we've got danger noodles, or as they're otherwise known, black coolie loaches. Also have a honey gourmet that was getting picked on quite a lot. It's living in there too. This has been a really easy tank to keep. It's kind of a no water change tank. I'll take RO water sometimes to top it off, but it really doesn't need water changes very often. I do more maintenance really in the top part of here, keeping these plants at bay, than really any other type of particular maintenance. You can watch the setup for this if you want to see how I put it together, but basically it's kind of like a Kleenex box. It's got a little 5-gallon tank inside of there, and this stuff is all wrapped around it to make it look really neat. There's some functionality too. It's hiding a lot of the mechanism that brings the water up here, which is just a pump and a tray. It brings the water up here and lets it cascade down into the rest of the tank. Alright, so as we back away from these tanks, move over to the other side of the studio. We take a look at these. Alright, so here we have this tank and a Placo that doesn't come out very often, so let's get a little tape of that. This is my honeymoon tank for these Skifas. So the Skifa multiplictata, these cute little goodids in here. Them and the Placo are all that's in this tank right now. That could change. That will change in the future. This is another one that had a plenum on the bottom. In fact, both of these tanks have plenums on the bottom. This was sort of a mixture of plenum and a bunch of ADA soil. So this has got like the power sand and all that stuff. I haven't been super impressed with the way it grows plants though. It's got the little Kessel light on top, which seems to light it up just fine. I did have a malfunctioning heater that I think was the cause of a lot of my initial problems. So that's actually been removed because these Skifas don't need it. The Placo doesn't need it. I've got some little blue shrimp in here too that I occasionally see. They don't care if it's in there. So this tank's been cleaned up a little bit, but it's doing pretty good. And we'll see how it does in the future. Alright, so as we move over here, you'll see what I call the Anoxic 20-gallon. This was my first kind of go at the Anoxic experiment. It's been going pretty good. Just lately, I've really been kind of overcome with algae. I've got a lot of algae problems and stuff in here. It's got the undergravel filter that runs into a corner filter that then runs into a canister filter. It's got a little fluval canister filter. It's also got CO2, which I basically turned off, or I have it going on. It's very barely going on inside of here right now. It's got a whole bunch of platy babies from the recent fish move and a beta that I got at a fish swap, along with some other kind of random fish that have come to me from other tanks and stuff. These are from a guy named Kevin at work. These really beautiful cherry barbs from a guy named Kevin at work that couldn't keep them anymore when he changed jobs, and they ended up with me. Gorgeous little fish, though. So this tank has been okay. It's not my favorite tank right now. Got a lot of algae issues I wish I could figure out, but I'm gonna just kind of keep plugging away at it and see what happens. I think this was another one that was probably way overdue to be redone entirely. Like, it really needs to be just pulled apart and done again. I'd love to do something else with this lid, maybe turn it into a paludarium of sorts. I think that'd be cool. Could be cool. I might have to move my guitars and stuff. But I think I'm ready to finally do something else with this tank. It's been so many things over the years. So I've done some really creative projects in here, and I think it's time to do maybe one more. Okay, and lastly, we have my no filter aquarium. Now, this aquarium has no filter, no CO2, no ferts. It's just a bunch of sand, and it's a dirted tank, so it's got something similar to what Dustin from Dustin's Fish Tanks or the Wallstead method or Father Fish. It's very similar to those particular techniques. I do have a lot of trouble keeping this particular tank with things that don't eat algae. If it doesn't eat algae, I've got an American flagfish and and a barb in here that are notorious for eating algae. They love to eat that algae, and when they're in there, this tank looks pretty clean. I've got some algae on the glass right now. This tank is really clean with them in there. But the second I take them out, like I've taken them out and put other fish in there and stuff, the algae really tends to grow up on all this stuff. This plant here, this pearl weed or whatever this plant is called, has just kind of gone nuts in here, and it's really taken over. Like I've gutted it. I've really truly pulled it out, and it's just come right back. So it's really kind of a pain in the ass to trim stuff in here because it really gets messy for a long period of time. But so this one might be up for a rescape soon. But other than that, I gotta say it's doing really good. It's a nice tank to wake up to. Very quiet in my bedroom with the no filter especially and stuff. I've got it kind of tucked away from windows and stuff. There's a window over here, but it doesn't get a lot of direct light or anything like that. I've done everything possible to kind of make this a pleasant place to grow plants and grow fish. And folks, I think that's about it for 2023. I'm done with this year. I don't know about you, but I'm over it. I'm ready for it to be over and ready to kind of start fresh in 2024. The next video you'll see from me will probably be a new introducing Pec Tech, where I kind of explain the way things are going on my channel now and what I plan to do in the future. Folks, thank you once again for coming by. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of this update or what you think of these kind of updates in general. I love seeing you all in the comments, and I try to answer whenever I can. So I'd love to see more of you there. Until next time, follow your bliss. Keep a clean tank. And I'll see you soon. Maybe. Bye-bye.